Up to this point, we've talked about Azure resources. We've talked about what we can do to fine-tune our management grasp over all of the varied styles, types, and locations that resources can appear. But what if we had a volume problem? What if instead of a subscription with 30 or 50 or 100 resources, we had 30 or 50 or 100 subscriptions? Say we had 10,000, 50,000, 200,000 Azure resources. Management needs a different approach then, doesn't it? What we have up to this point is we have a resource, and our resource exists within a subscription and also a resource group. When this little relationship starts getting much larger in volume, when there are hundreds or thousands of these conversations between resources, subscriptions, and resource groups, then where it starts getting difficult is when you have efforts that need to be applied on more of an individual basis where a lot of things were designed. So if we had the need to modify, for instance, the permissions on our virtual machines, we wanted a specific group of people that we designate to use our virtual machines. What we would normally do in a small to initiating Azure subscription, something just getting started, what we would do is we would assign the resource group permissions specifically related to VMs so that all VMs that are created within that resource group are then applied to that specific set of permissions. No sweat, right? We can get a little bit broader than that. We're like, okay, wait, actually, all VMs that we create within our subscription, all of them, right? All VMs. We want a specific set of permissions and we're going to do it for everything. Yeah, we're going to come up here to the subscription and we're going to do it there. Now, as companies start getting larger, what they end up doing is they start organizing their subscriptions as a method of separating projects and departments. And then with each one comes, who knows how many different RGs to help keep track of resource purpose and function and organize the bill strata. Remember, the bill is going to come in on the sub. That doesn't change even if you've got management groups in place, which is the key solution to the rest of the problem. With management groups, we can create an organization for our subs and even our RGs, and we can intelligently manage percentages of our organization, of our infrastructure, in a way that suits our size and volume of organization. Now, we're not going to say that a small organization can't take advantage of using manager groups. Absolutely not. It's a great way of, and I'll explain what we use it for here in a second, to do all that. But more importantly, it is worth noting as you're preparing for something like the AZ900 that management groups are really a large organization tailored solution because of volume more than anything. So say we have this management group, right? We create MG1 and we have 3 subscriptions. Each one of them has, 4 different resource groups in it. That'd give us 12 RGs total, followed by the 3 subs, right? Now we have a management group, and okay, what exactly can we do with that? Well, first off, let's explain that there's going to be a root level. And the root MG is the tenant that is designated the root tenant, which means that if you've got 20 or 200 or 2,000 subscriptions, there's still going to be one root. So you have one root level, and that management group is capable of being tiered 6 times so that you can have management groups within management groups that contain management groups that contain management groups that contain management groups, all the way 6 levels deep. 6 levels deep. And since each one can contain subscriptions and resource groups, as well as being applied, anything at the root level will still be considered applicable to anything beneath it unless something takes precedence further down. What specifically are we going to use this for? Azure policy, which we'll have a dedicated conversation about here in the future. Suffice to say, this is one method for us ensuring security and corporate standard is being applied. We also can use it to control RBAC. This was our example when we were talking back here, right, about different virtual machines and how we would distribute things. RBAC is definitely something we want to be able to distribute at a management group level if we can. Additionally, we can report using our management group on security policy, like patch status, if we're using those services, on our policy compliance, our procedure compliance, as well as the success of our deployments. We even have the ability to roll up our cost evaluations. Now, those are usually intended to be at the sub, right? The sub is where we're going to get all of our individual cost analysis, and the bill is going to come to the sub. But we can still go ahead and take a look at what the totals are all in one place, including our forecasting. Over in the Azure portal, here's what that looks like. We can bring up management groups, and you can see a very familiar foldering structure, a tiering structure. Here's the tenant root group that we talked about, as well as our first management group, which it's funny, when you create the first management group, it also creates the association of the tenant root group, and you have to create the first one to get the whole structure illustrated in front of you. It takes a few minutes to generate. But then once you get here, you can actually add management groups, several tiers within each management group, and I would assume the max number of management groups you could have in any Azure environment would be in the hundreds or thousands. Here we can see where it outlines the subscriptions that are associated with a given management group. In this case, there aren't any because it's associated with the tenant root group. Same with the resource groups and the resources. These are all empty because there's nothing inside of them. If we go back up to the tenant root group, we can see here's our subscription, here's a bunch of resource groups, and all the resources that exist within that management group, the tenant root group itself. Once we have our resources organized, here's our governance, which would apply, as we can see over on the left-hand side, our security evaluation, our policy deployments, which this will take me over to Azure policy, as well as cost analysis, showing this one here, for example. So we create our subscriptions, and we create our resource groups within the subscriptions to organize our resources. But we can also create management groups to organize our subscriptions and resource groups and resources. So we have this tier option. It all depends on what we need and the size of our organization, generally speaking. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.